So if we start back in 2019, when he asked me about if I wanted a divorce, ultimately we got divorced. And then I packed up and moved to small town Tennessee. I'd already went and visited my cousin once. They were lovely, her and her husband. So I packed up and moved to her house. I had two dogs, a big one and a little one, and the big one was deaf. And he had a problem of when he got excited, he just peed. So when you got a big dog that's peeing when they get excited, it's a lot of pee. So she had a stepfather. Her mom had passed away years before, but she had a stepfather that had a beautiful house on the lake, and he liked me, not like, at least I didn't put two and two together. And so he offered for me to come and, live with him. So mind you, I had the two dogs, and it was an interesting house. Absolutely amazing. It was 2 floors. The bottom floor was at ground level for the backyard, and the upper floor was ground level for the front yard. And so I was upstairs and he was downstairs. And my dogs, they were wood floors upstairs, so he could hear everywhere my dog went. And this man was probably, oh my gosh, how old was he? Mid-70s, we'll say. And but man, he really wanted to get me in his hot tub, and it was very creepy. And he gave me hugs that were definitely inappropriate. And then one day, I guess since he wasn't getting the kind of response from me sexually that he wanted, he said I needed to get rid of the dogs. And if I got rid of the dogs, then I could come back. But I wasn't going to get rid of the dogs. I was just going to leave. So I did. I went and got a cabin at a RV park. Rented it for 30 days. All this time I'm talking to my ex the same time. And he's wanting to come see me. And he had gotten back into meditation. And I think mentally we were both in a good place. So I let him come again, and he stayed. And we decided to team up again and start driving for a major corporation. And but they were all subcontractors. So when the cabin was up, we moved to a hotel. And then, so now we're talking about early 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020, early 2020. The world started closing down. And I had discovered, so we were in Tennessee between Knoxville and Nashville, staying at a hotel. And I had discovered, I can't even remember how, that hotels were actually cheaper in Orlando, Florida than they were where we were, right, in Tennessee. And because everybody was leaving Florida. All the tourists were leaving. Nobody was coming to visit. So the hotels were all like empty and their prices got cheap. So we ended up in a hotel that typically would have been $180 a night at least for $40. $40 a night. And couldn't pass it up. So we packed up the car, drove from Tennessee down to Orlando, Florida, because it was cheaper. And the weather was nice. We could go swimming. I don't remember what month it was. It was sometime in spring. It was nice. We could go swimming. That's what we did. We stayed there, I don't know, like a few weeks. And then found a subcontractor, got approved for all that, blah, blah, blah. And then had to leave Orlando and go all the way to Ohio to pick up our truck and to start orientation. And so we did that. And with no real defining discussion of what he and I was. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what we were. I don't know what I assumed. But then started with, he spent a lot of time on his phone. A lot of time. And a lot of time ignoring me. And I thought, well, this is new. And so we ran through 2020. Now we left an owner. We left two owners. We left the first place, the first subcontractor, and had to find another subcontractor. That's what it was. When we were in Florida, that's when we had already left our first subcontractor. We'd only been with them for like a month and discovered that this ain't gonna work. We need to get hazmat and all those clearances and all that. And because we weren't surviving. We were barely surviving, let's put it that way. So that's when we got the hotel in Tennessee, and then COVID was starting to shut down, you know. So we drove to Florida. I found another subcontractor, and then we had, after a few weeks, we left Florida, drove to Ohio to pick up his truck. That's what it was. And we started running for him, and ran for him for a few months. And he was a micromanager. And then I think my ex-husband needed to take the summer off because that's when his big, you know, rock star lifestyle was happening. So that took like June, July, August till September, about 4 months. And so I would come off the truck, we both did, and just kind of put that part on hold. But I'd managed to save up money, and I found some land. I found just over 5 acres in Tennessee, same area where my cousin lived, and I was just tickled to death. So, and that was payment-wise. That was, this land company does the financing. Very small down payment, very small monthly payment for 20 years, I think, or something. And so then I found a fifth wheel camper and put that on the property and lived in the fifth wheel camper. I had electric, but I didn't have water. But there was a spring in town, so I had to acquire a shit ton of 5-gallon, you know, those jugs and everything else, and get creative on taking showers. And they make these cool heated shower, well, no, it wasn't, was it heated? I can't remember. No, it wasn't heated, but it was, you drop one in like into a bucket of water, and then the other one was a shower head. And so you had to charge it, and when you turned it on, it would suck the water out of the bucket or the trash can or whatever you put it in, and you take a shower in it. So all I had to do was heat up the water so I could have hot water. So I had a hot plate because I was scared to death to use the stove in that camper. Ran on propane. And I don't know, I'm not good with gas appliances. They just scared me. And so I would heat up the water, and I could get into the shower and take my huge bucket of water with my little shower head, and I could take a shower inside the shower and just let it drain out onto the property. So I would talk to him on the phone, and if I look back, I should have saw the flags back then, but I didn't. I thought we were still together, I guess. I mean, I wasn't looking for somebody else, and we were just enjoying each other's companies and having fun, and almost like we were still married, except we didn't share money, but we shared expenses, and we still slept together and still did, all those things that married couples do. And so then I bought a 14 by whatever the largest shed is, 14 by 30. I can't remember what it is now. And put that on the property because that was the whole plan the whole entire time, was to build a tiny house. And so I bought that. And so the meantime, we're still running for this big company, and we could take a week off every month. So whenever we would, come home, he would take off, and go back home to Indiana, and which is only a 4-hour drive from Tennessee. And I hope you don't mind. And I never questioned really what was going on every time he went home. I mean, there was times when I couldn't get a hold of him, but I didn't think too much of it. But then whenever he come back, at one point, so we're still living in the camper, but I have this 14 by 40 shed sitting on the property, empty. It still needs to be converted. And at one point, a text come through, or a messenger came through on his phone, and it was a female's name, and he didn't hear his phone go off. So I picked it up, and I could read, the front screen. And it was like he had just messaged her or something. It was very kind of a new conversation. And it was a female that I'd never seen before. She wasn't a friend of his on Facebook. And so I questioned him about it, and he's like, oh, she's a lesbian, she's harmless. And but ultimately I looked her up on Facebook, and she has kids, so she's not completely a lesbian. And I wasn't buying it. I don't think she was, because of the tone of the conversation. She lived in Louisville, which is like an hour from where he would go over in Indiana. And then there would just be random stuff. He was on all the platforms. Like he was invested and just glued to his phone like nobody's business. And wasn't necessarily like that before. But I didn't think about it back then like I did after everything came out. The thought never crossed my mind that he would ever cheat on me, step out on me, lie about anything like that. It never crossed my mind. That's how in love we were. That's how special it all was. That's how he made me feel. Was that I was it, you know. So at one point he was getting so much activity on his phone from females. That I actually made him change his phone number. Now, if we go back to the very beginning of when he and I got together in 2007, he had gotten divorced within the past year, I'd say, from a woman that he had worked with that just used him to no end. I mean, he took out a home equity line of credit to buy her a car that he put in her name, and when she left, he still had the home equity loan that he had to pay on, and she had the car. He was babysitting her kids while she was out ripping and running after they were divorced. They were still sexting after they got divorced. Like, she knew how to reel him in, how to keep him on the hook. But it's interesting because he would always tell me that she was crazy, and he didn't find out till after they got married that she was bipolar. But then when I think back now, I'm like, I'm betting you he's doing the same thing about me to his new girlfriend that he did to me about his ex-wife. She's the crazy one. She's the reason. She was the problem. It's crazy. And I guarantee you he's doing that to his new girlfriend. I'm the problem. This man, so back when we first got together, he was still talking to her. He disappeared one night on me early on in our relationship. Now, at this point, we were living together. It was before we got married. And this is back when you had the flip phones, 2007. And so we both worked together at a prison. And but we had different off days. So he worked second shift, which means he got off at 11:30, somewhere around there. I can't remember. And so, you know, I knew when he comes home, whatever time it was, 12:30, he should be home by 12:30, whatever the time was. And so the time comes and goes, and he's not home. And 1 o'clock, and he's not home, or whatever, the time is. So I call his phone, and I get no answer. And I call, no answer, call, no answer. Now, you can't take your phone inside the prison, so the phone is out in your car. But I'm getting no answer. And I'm panicking. And, because it is a prison, And so I finally call the prison, and the person I get, and I ask him about, is so-and-so still, can I speak to so-and-so? And they're like, well, he left like an hour ago or whatever it was. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, he's not here. He didn't get held over. You know, he's not working. He left when everybody else left out, you know. And I'm like, what the fuck? So at this point, it's like 2 hours past when he's supposed to be home. So I'm calling his phone, and I'm calling his phone, and I'm calling his phone. And then he finally answers. And I'm like, what are you doing? Where are you at? And he tells me that he's at Walmart. He needed to run to Walmart. Now, I don't know if I didn't think at the time to ask him, do you think to call me? You know, I've been trying to call you. I was so worried about you. It never crossed my mind that he was doing anything other than what he told me he was doing. That's how naive I was. And, okay. He's like, I'm on my way home. Okay. So, this is also back when you used to get cell phone bills in the mail. So he had his cell phone. I had my cell phone. We weren't, you know, on the same plan. And, so I do remember at one point looking through his phone. Now, pictures in a flip phone are like, you know, a little bit bigger than the size of a stamp. And I remember finding a very graphic photo of his ex-wife. And I was like, what the fuck? So when the phone bill came, and back then, the phone bill would list all your phone calls, the time, the date, and the duration. It would list all the phone numbers that you were texting with. So I opened his bill and I looked at it and I matched the date and the time of when he was missing to this phone call and a phone number. So I called the phone number and I got her voicemail. I heard her voice. And I'm like, huh, what the fuck is going on here? And so I confronted him. And needless to say, he changed his phone number. I don't even know if you could block a phone number with the little flip phones, but he changed his phone number. And of course he doesn't tell his family the reason why, you know, that because he's an idiot. He's just like, oh, there's too many spam calls, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Because ultimately, in 4 years, he changed his phone number twice. From 2020 to 2021, 2022, yeah. He changed his phone number twice. Because there was so much shit that he was doing on his phone. I was such an idiot. But I guess we'll continue this again. All right. Thanks for listening. Love you guys. Until next time.